Well, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is James Cooper. I am the President and CEO of the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce, and today is our 2023 Legislative Update session. This is an event that is very important to me for my organization to host. This is something that in past chambers is a regular feature for our chambers of commerce, and it is something that I intend to see happen regularly with this chamber of commerce. So what we're here today to do is we're here to hear from our legislative representatives. We have 5 of our branches of our legislative treaty represented, and I will go through quick introductions in a moment. Unfortunately, State Senator Glazer is not going to be able to be represented. Jennifer Rizzo, who is going to speak on his behalf, has some personal things come up and she was unable to attend. So hopefully at a future version of this, we'll have Senator's participation as well. So today is going to be a fast-paced review of legislative priorities from each of our representatives. You're going to have a few minutes to talk about what's happening. And once we get through all of those introductions, I'm going to be handing it over to my moderator today from Stanford Healthcare Tri-Valley, COO Tracey Lewis Taylor. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Perfect timing.
You're very dramatic.
I'm getting perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce each of our representatives who are here today. And I'm going to start by just giving them just a little quick biography. Now, this is for Congressman Eric Swalwell. It's not for Mallory, so sorry, Mallory. But just quick facts. Most of you, if you've attended these, you've probably heard these before. So this isn't everything. So Congressman Swalwell, he grew up and attended public schools in the East Bay. Something I didn't know about him is that he earned a Division I soccer scholarship when he played soccer in college. So that's impressive. He earned his undergrad and law degrees from the University of Maryland, which is a university we will see is represented elsewhere in the today. He was now a county prosecutor at the DA's office for 7 years. He served on Dublin City Council, Planning Commission, and he was elected in 2012 to U.S. Congress, where he's now serving his 6th term. A partial list of the committees he serves on includes the House Judiciary Committee, the House Homeland Security Committee, and the Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection. So thank you to Congressman Swalwell's office, and thank you to Mallory for being here today. Assembly Member Rebecca Pablo. So the Assembly Member is a Bay Area native, an undergrad from the University of Pennsylvania and her law degree from Georgetown University Law Center, specializing in environmental laws and intellectual property cases and civil rights cases as a lawyer. Then you were elected in 2018, and a partial list of the committees you serve on include the committees on water, parks, and wildlife, which you chaired, committee on utilities and energy, the select committee on reproductive health, which you also chaired, and the select committee on cybersecurity. So cybersecurity, a bit of a theme so far. From County Supervisor David Hobart's office, we have Sean Wilson. Sean, thank you for being here today. Again, I don't have your bio here. So, the County Supervisor was born on a German military base and then moved to Southern California, where he became an Eagle Scout and, interesting factoid, learned to play the accordion. He got his undergraduate degree in finance from CSU Northridge and his MBA from UCLA. In school for that, my daughter's going to UCLA, so proud of UCLA. And he was a food industry professional before serving on the Dublin Unified School District Board of Trustees for 10 years and as mayor of Dublin for 6 years. He was elected in 2020, and he serves, again, partial list on the Alameda County Transportation Commission, San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, and the Tri-Valley Transportation Council, amongst others. For County Supervisor Nate Miley's office, we have City Council Member Valerie Arkin. Again, I don't have your bio here. So County Supervisor Nate Miley has been an Oakland resident for over 30 years. He's an undergrad from Franklin and Marshall College, and his law degree is also from the University of Oakland. In 1986, he founded the United Seniors of Oakland and Alameda County, an organization that was a personal passion of his. And then in 2000, he was elected to the County Board of Supervisors, serving in his 6th term. He is also currently in his 2nd term as president. Again, a partial list of who he, of the committees he serves on.
Your stomach burn?
didn't have any breakfast, I'm sorry.
Served on include the Transportation and Finance Committee with 2 chairs, the Procurement and Contracting Policy Committee with 2 chairs, and the Public Protection Committee. And last, certainly not least, our Mayor, Carla Brown, who's lived in Pleasanton for 28 years. She had 10 years before she got into the political world, 10 years as a global account manager in the semiconductor equipment manufacturing industry, which some people know. Got your real estate license in 2002 and had the GRI and CRS designations. Got your real estate broker's license in 2007. Kind of a tough time to get the broker's license. Yes. And then was elected to city council in 2012. We served 2 terms, and as mayor in 2020, we're currently serving the 2nd term. Amongst the many committees that the mayor served on include the Zone 7 Water Liaison Committee, Alameda County Transportation Commission, and the Livermore Amber Valley Transportation Authority. So please welcome our guests. So for this next period, this is going to be a fairly fast-paced review of the agenda or bills that these representatives are working on. And I'd like to start with Congressman Swalwell's office. Mallory.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Mallory. I'm the Congressman's District Chief of Staff. I've been with his office going on about 9 years now. And it is my absolute pleasure to be joining you and being here in the room with those of you that are here today. I will begin by saying to anyone that is experiencing some stress given recent events, our hearts are with you. The Congressman had several meetings about that this weekend. It's a difficult topic for a lot of people. I would just want to acknowledge that to begin. So legislative priorities. The Congressman is really trying to focus on working people this session. His position on committees enables him to do that somewhat. He's the lead Dem on the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection. And we're seeing that become more and more of a nexus to our small business community. You used to have to be about 10 feet tall in order to be a cybersecurity, in order to feel that threat in the cybersecurity space. We're seeing now, given a change in tactics and the pervasiveness of the kind of hacker being a for-profit market, not to mention government actors, we're seeing that does very closely affect a lot of our small business community. So that is a huge priority. And to that end, I will say that we will be hosting a cybersecurity summit. We will have representatives from CISA, FBI, and I think it's CalSIC, a part of Cal OES, speaking on the topic, as well as a panel of private sector people that are talk about best practices for various types of businesses, industries, and all that. That is all happening at 9 a.m. at Las Positas College on Friday, October 27. We hope as many of you who would like to come will join us, and we're sharing that information. I'll make sure you have it and can distribute it to your membership, as well as we'll be sharing it more broadly with some of our local elected partners as well. So I wanted to get that out there. Along with that, the Congressman has co-sponsored bills helping working families, and is trying to really put an emphasis on getting Valley Link done, which I know we'll touch on later. That will improve the lives of both you, your clients, as well as the people commuting through our district, and working on that. So I will leave it there for now. Happy to answer any questions later.
Thank you.
Of course.
And now we'd like to move over to our state assembly member, Rebecca Allison.
Thank you, and thanks for being with all of you in person. Last time we were on Zoom, it's so much better to be in the room together. So you heard a little bit about my bio. One of my main focuses in the legislature is water, as chair of the Water, Parks and Wildlife Committee, and I wanted to touch on that briefly because obviously it's an issue of concern for the entire state, but I know it's a specific concern to the folks here at Pleasanton. And so, you know, one of the things I do in my role is make sure that we are creating robust water storage and water conveyance systems throughout California to ensure clean, safe, affordable drinking water for every Californian. As many of you know, 1 million Californians today, it's probably an underestimate, live without water they can bathe in or drink. And that is here in our own backyard. Many of those people live in the Central Valley and many are native Californians. We displace our native people and move them to land without water. And so they rely on plastic water bottles that we help them get during the summer months. So a lot there that we need to focus on. And, you know, as you know here, and I want to give a huge shout out to Mayor Brown, who's been working on PFAS in your water since before she was mayor, until we're talking about this. So she's been an incredible leader in this space, but making sure that every community has access to all of the water at their disposal is really what our future is going to demand. Lawrence Berkeley Lab says that in 24 years now, we will have no more snow in the Sierra. And so when that happens, it will shape the water systems of the state, and we will need an all of the above water approach. And that means that the underground water here in our backyard needs to be accessible, clean, and available to communities. And so, you know, we've been trying to partner with the city. We were able to get them a $1 million direct grant this year for cleanup, but continuing every year we've been passing PFAS remediation grants, so helping to bring some of those dollars here to get your water cleaned up. Although also a huge shout out to Zone 7, who I know has been a great partner to Pleasanton for these times. But wanted you to know that we are focused on that and doing everything we can to help ensure you have safe, clean, plenty of drinking water. I'm apparently the most fascinating water member in the legislature because I'm the only member that has both upstream. So the cross portion of my district is upstream, the East Bay mud from Yosemite directly, and State Water Project water downstream here in the Tri-Valley. So I have the north and south aspects of water, and I think I'm the only member for whom that is true. So it's been interesting for me to be the water chair. So I said, I have both. I'm both north and south. Although I said Northern California, but the issues relate to the southern portion of my district. So another thing that I want to touch on, and a huge shout out to the congressman for his work on the Valley Link project. We are really hopeful and excited to see some of those Inflation Reduction Act dollars come into building that fueling station, the hydrogen fueling station, the first of its kind, I think, in the nation. Yep. But definitely here in California, and it's been something that has really excited my colleagues about the project. It's fun when I get to show things off that we're doing here that are the first of their kind of really a green hydrogen. What is green hydrogen is always the question. And we can show them in our backyard what it's going to look like. And so we're excited for those dollars to come down and help us move that forward. Continuing to move in conjunction with the federal dollars that are coming, state dollars. We were able to get $5 million, continuing the planning process for Valley Link. We want that project to keep moving forward. And I want to thank all of you, because one of the real issues there has been that MTC, the Transportation Authority here in the Bay, has not been the best partner, I will be honest, on Valley Link over the years. That has come around thanks to all of you and the leadership of our elected officials here in the Tri-Valley, pushing them to really prioritize this project. And I think the critical point that we're making for them is that so much of the workforce in the Bay Area is coming through our valley, right? We know that. And we know that for your businesses and for the businesses of the Bay to be able to thrive, we need workers, right? And they cannot all afford to live in the lots of parts of the Bay Area. And so for people to commute, 2 years running, the New York Times has called it one of the top 10 longest commutes. It's straight in from Stockton through the Tri-Valley. And we have to reduce that. It's 4 hours right now. And we have to allow people good access to public transit. So it's a really important project, not just for the environment, but also for our economy. So we're going to continue to push that forward. And it's been really fun to be able to partner with the federal partners on that. So we'll continue to work on your behalf together to move that forward, and with our local governments who are advocating for it every day. And they never let me forget it, which is good. I'm sure Mallory feels the same. And then lastly, really, you're hearing a real focus on cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. It is really critical that we continue to lead the nation. As much as we would love Congress to act in a lot of these regards, because we do think it is best to have a national model for companies to follow. We also understand that moving things through Congress right now is actually impossible because they don't have a speaker. So in that vacuum, California feels it is our place to lead on these things and to make sure we're setting the standard for the country, and hopefully people will follow. And so last year I introduced what turned out to be the strongest artificial intelligence bill in the nation, focused on automated decision tools. And actually Workday here in the Valley has been a real partner on that, and looking at how we allow for the innovation of these tools while protecting the people who are being used. And I know many of you in healthcare know this firsthand, that these tools are really important, but we also want to make sure that they're not perpetuating problems that have existed for decades of certain people not getting access to the same jobs, the same healthcare, the same loans, et cetera. And so the bill really focuses on those consequential decisions. So healthcare, housing, employment, where we're using artificial intelligence and saying to those purveyors, deployers, developers, you have to test it. Before you put it in the field, we need to know that you're not creating discriminatory tools. You're feeding in good data to these AI models so that, example in the tech field, if you were to put in historical hiring data, you think I'm gonna get a job in the tech field? No, right? Because those jobs are traditionally held by men. And so we need to make sure the data being fed in allows for the diversity that we want to see and equity. So that's really exciting. And what is exciting is we've now seen 3 different copycat bills introduced across the country. And that's what we were hoping for, was to lead and to allow for consistency across the country, even if it's the states that are acting. And so we're hopeful that's what's going to come out of this, and that although that bill didn't make it out of appropriation last year, it'll be back and we're going to move it again this year. Continuing to focus on California and ensuring that we move to a more business-friendly environment. We know how hard it is to do business. A lot of the things that we want for California that I know all of us share, right, which is to take care of our employees, to provide them with the childcare resources to get them back into their jobs, to allow them to care for family when they're sick. I mean, every small business owner I talk to says, of course, if my employee needs to go take care of a sick child, I want to support them in that, right? These are shared values. And so the question is, how do we take these values, put them into action in ways that work for businesses? And so we were able to extend the sunset on a bill that we did last year, which was the first of its kind that allowed in these leave contexts basically forced state mediation. So if somebody has an issue, instead of suing a small business, they go to our state mediators, paid for, so nobody has to pay for the mediation, and it helps them to give the person what they're entitled to and not face the litigation costs. And we talked to the agency, and it's been incredibly successful, because most businesses who screw this up don't do it on purpose, right? And so with the ability to go to the state and just find out, oh, this is what I was supposed to do, let me correct that, instead of being protracted litigation, allows for everybody to get what they need and want. And so that's been a really exciting program that we've been able to prove out. We extended the sunset on it, but we're going to come back next year and hopefully expand it to more programs, because we think it really is the best way to ensure that those values that all of us share are met without the burdens that's being placed on small businesses. So continuing to look at things like that, and that's a little bit of an update, but I need to move on.
Thank you very much, Senator. Next, we would like to hear from County Supervisor David Hoger's office. It's Sean Wilson.
So good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here. Sorry that the supervisor couldn't be here in person. However, he sent me, just so you know a little bit about me, I've been in District 1 as the Chief of Staff. Before Supervisor Howard took over, he was kind enough to keep me. I worked for 11 years with Supervisor Scott Haggerty. And then before I worked for another supervisor for about 9 years. So I have about 23 years of county experience in Alameda County. What's important for, I think, you to know in terms of how we operate a county, you'd be very proud as business folks yourself, business leaders in the community. So we have a AAA rating, one of only 2 counties in the state of California. We employ 10,339 full-time equivalent staff members within the county. So it's one of the largest employers in Alameda County. Last year, we passed a $4.1 billion budget without any layoffs. I'm proud to say for the last 20 years that I've been with the county, we have not laid off a single person. We've been able to balance the budget consistently for 20 plus years that I've been with the county. A couple of things we're working on. Obviously, I can sing the praise of Valley Link Love Fest. I started that project years ago, and it's been a very ongoing, difficult, sometimes frustrating process, but we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully we'll continue to march collectively as all branches of this legislative group work together to make this happen. You know, to offer 30,000 commutes a day over that Altamont significantly changes the lives of people in San Joaquin and Stanislaus County. I remember when we were shooting the videos for the video vignettes, when we were promoting Valley Link, the stories of family members that are torn apart because their parent, their father, their mother can't be home to coach softball, can't see their son play soccer, can't get there in time to be part of the family dinner. And it's sad. You know, they Google a house out in San Joaquin in Stanislaus County and think it's only 40 miles away, but that 40 mile is a 2-hour commute. So when we embarked on Valley Link, we knew it would be a game changer for the region. like the assembly member said, it's a housing connectivity it's a multi-pronged approach that will be beneficial for generations to come. So in addition to that, we continue to work. One of the first things that Supervisor Halbert came to the county and wanted to work on is streamlining processes within the county to make it easier for business to operate, to make it easier for folks to navigate through the county bureaucracy, whether they want to add an ADU to their backyard or to update their septic system. We've been working with a few different consultants to figure out how to best do that. One of the recommendations that was made to us last month was to hire somebody that would be a project manager that would be above the departments but below the CAO's office. So instead of calling Sean with a complaint and then Sean has to call the department and then Sean gets in trouble for being too aggressive, now we have somebody else in the middle that can field those calls and make those calls to make it easier for our constituents. Since representing the city of Pleasanton in 2021, we represent now 16% of the community. Castlewood, we work on issues pertaining to their sewer and septic. Ongoing issue, we're working with them. I think, we have given $274,000 to nonprofits and local businesses here in the community. The county is not the sexiest form of government, right? We provide services to the most indigent, the most impoverished. Those that are really in need is when we interface with a constituent. So we do that with pride and we do that with joy because some of these folks really need the resources that we give them. You may have heard of One Nation Dream Makers. They now have access to the Ridgeview Commons kitchen. We paid for a full year of accessibility so they can provide free food to those in need. We also gave them the College Ave old abandoned fire station in Livermore, and they dispatched over 500 free meals every 2 to 3 days within Alameda County. So we're always here to help. You ever have a problem, concern with Alameda County, feel free to reach out to us. Again, I'm Sean Wilson. I am Chief Staff to Supervisor David Howard, and thank you, Casey.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for the report. And now representing County Supervisor Nate Miley, actually council member.
Thank you very much and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Pleasanton Chamber for hosting this briefing today. Supervisor Miley does send his regrets that he cannot be here. He is currently at an MTC meeting in San Francisco, and I'll explain later why it's important for him to be at that meeting today. So I have been working for Supervisor Miley for just about 2 months now, and I'm a part-time staffer for him. So if you get me today, and hopefully I can do him justice, but I handle constituent services here in Pleasanton, as well as some committee work and JPAs for him. So happy to be here though. And as far as legislative updates from him, I will go over his priorities are illegal dumping, which has actually become an issue throughout Alameda County, mental health, public safety, affordable housing and homelessness, seniors. That's a big priority of his. And we just had the Healthy Living Festival. We held it, I think the 20th annual, we held it at the Oakland Zoo this year, and over 3,000 seniors participated, and a lot from Pleasanton. There were shuttle buses that we had from Pleasanton. So that was a great event. Cannabis is also another priority of him. Commercial cannabis regulation in unincorporated areas, that's a priority as well. So some legislation that he lobbied for the Wilson bill, which is AB 592, and that is it has been signed into law. So that one has gone through. It's a license requirement for small haulers, and why this is kind of relates to business as well is the county now will have the authority to regulate this in unincorporated areas, and law enforcement can enforce it as well now too. And it's pretty much an unregulated industry. So this will prevent illegal dumping and such that small haulers will now have to be registered. And so how it relates to business, if a business hires somebody to dump a whole truckload of stuff for them, they pay them for that. But sometimes these smaller haulers will, it costs them to actually dump it somewhere. And sometimes what's been occurring is sometimes they won't do that in order to just not have to pay that fee and illegal dump somewhere. So it has become an issue. And that is one thing that is a big priority of his. AB 909 and SB 367, those were solid waste cleanup and state and federal lands illegal dumping. Unfortunately, those did not make it out of committee, but he wanted me to mention that those were ones he was lobbying for. Housing and homelessness is another big priority of his. And we'll talk more later, but the possible regional affordable housing bond, he's very supportive of. And I know in September, the Board of Supervisors declared homelessness a state of emergency, and they passed a resolution that directed the Health Care Services Agency in Alameda County and the Office of Homeless Care and Coordination to lead the development of an emergency response, and they have to report back to the Board of Supervisors within 60 days. So that is another issue he takes very seriously and wants to address. Public safety is a big priority of his. And he led the violence prevention initiative, and I believe $5 million in the ARPA funds, the rescue funds, round 2 went to that. And I believe an office will be opening that will be a violence prevention office in Alameda County. And I believe public health is also involved with that. Valley Link is a big priority. I'm going to save that for later because I know that's a panel question, but that also is a very big priority of this. And a few other pieces of legislation that he has been supportive of. AB 254, and that's our own Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer-Kayan, the confidentiality of medical information. He's been very supportive of that. AB 1207, it's the cannabis labeling and advertising. And AB 781, which is accessibility to emergency information and services relating to emergency shelters and people with pets. So those are a few other priorities of his as well. And I will save the rest for later because I know there's a lot coming up. So anyhow, pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate it. And finally, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, it is an honor to be here. Thank you so much. It's down the street and around the corner. I didn't have to go down the freeway to come. But it's an honor to be here and represent the city of Pleasanton. So we are not traditional legislative. We've got other people up here that are really legislators, but we're influencers. And that's really important. So when the assembly member said we're in touch with her regular basis, we're in touch with her, we're in touch with Mallory and Eric Swalwell as a 5-city coalition. That is Danville, the town. It's not quite a city. They're hoping to be a city one day. Danville, San Ramon, Pleasanton, Dublin, and Livermore. And the 5 of us mayors travel to Sacramento. And we meet with our legislators there, and then we go to Washington, D.C. together. We go with our lobbyists, which is Townsend and Associates. It's an organization that the 5 cities have paid for to work together. They set up the appointments, we go together, and we advocate for each other. It's not a me or them. The people from Danville come with me to advocate for PFAS-free water. And that's really important because when 5 cities join together, we represent a very large city, somewhere around the 10th largest city in the state of California. That's a big voice. So that's important. In addition, the city of Pleasanton has a legislative framework. I'll show a picture. It's many, many pages, but I'll just give you an idea of what that legislative framework. Safe and secure community, housing and housing for all, fiscal sustainability, and foster economic prosperity. So when a bill comes to our state or federal legislators, it is tracked. We work with Townsend, we work with our other mayors, or we work with our city legislative platform, and they generate, I review and sign many, many, many letters. Some of these went to the governor asking for a veto or asking for support. So I hope these letters resonate with those that are receiving them. But in addition, I texted the assembly member while she's on the floor, and I know, so thank you very much for the support on that. So that communication is unique. It is something that's been fostered through years of relationship building, as well as the ability to pick up the phone. She can call me, I call her. I've talked to Steve Blazier directly, depending on what the issue is. That relationship is something that's built through time and through long support. She puts together a bill, and I think we've always supported them. She understands what the Tri-Valley needs. She supports us, and it's so incredibly important that we support her also. So things like all these beautiful letters. Just to give you a summary, this is something staff is tracking. I know it's difficult to see, but you can see there are a lot of bills. And I've been reading about what the governor is signing and not signing. Congratulations, doing, getting your sign through. But it's very important because these things affect us. They affect our safety and security. They affect our housing. They affect the finance of your community. And can we pay our bills when they come due? And things like ARPA funding, that's so important when we're in the middle of COVID. The federal government gave us money to help pay for our expenses so that we could get through it. And some of the funding we forwarded on to our small businesses to support them. So everybody was challenged through the COVID years. And so these are just some of the ways the city of Pleasanton interfaces with all of our county supervisors and our state and federal elected officials. It's critical, it's important. You don't read a lot about it in the newspaper, but it's happening and it's one of the biggest jobs I have here.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, and thank you all for the wonderful updates. And so now to keep things moving, we're going to shift it over to our panel discussion, and here to facilitate that discussion, I again introduce Tracey Lewis Taylor.
Well, I'll say finally, good afternoon. I'm Tracey Lewis Taylor. My day job, I am the Chief Operating Officer for Stanford Healthcare Tri-Valley. In today's capacity, I'll be serving as a board member for the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce. I am also a past chair, so a great honor and privilege to continue a leadership role, if you will, for this moment in time. Full transparency, this is my first time moderating a legislative panel, so really appreciate the collaboration, not just with the chamber, but certainly with each of your offices as we've prepared for today's discussion. I hope it will be enjoyable and fun for those sitting in the room today, as well as those on Zoom. We do have several questions prepared, or I'll say topics or themes that we intend to cover. If there are questions from our viewers or from the audience members here today, I encourage you, I have a couple of note cards, pass them around. Please feel free to jot down your questions, or if you're joining us via Zoom, please feel free to put them in the chat and direct them to James as the host. I think it's listed in your Pleasanton Chamber as the host of today's session. If you want to do that as a private chat, we'll pull those together and ask for participation. All right, so without further ado, we've got a lot of topics. I know Valley Link was one that kept coming up. Not going to start there though. I think I want to start really with infrastructure. To me, that always seems like a good place to ground ourselves in making sure we have the right infrastructure in place to not just build or grow our communities, but to maintain the strength that we have today. So I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you around what your offices are doing to help solidify and maintain the infrastructure. And maybe Mallory, I'll start with you if you don't mind. I know that the congressman has a lot of sort of voice at the national level and is responsible for funding requests that ultimately serve not just the Tri-Valley, but certainly in Pleasanton. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of those appropriations and how they will benefit the community, the Tri-Valley communities, as well as the residents of Pleasanton.
Absolutely. So, and I guess I'll break my answer down into two parts. We have the 2 parts that would be really transparent, but not really. 2 parts. So the traditional, of course, appropriations process, where we saw a lot of funds moving through Congress over the last 2 years to address some kind of long-standing issues that have become more and more costly as we put them off. And infrastructure is one of them. And so the primary role of a member of Congress is to make sure that safety standards are set, or the agency responsible is setting them, and to start dishing out money in order to make projects possible. And we saw that with the infrastructure package. We finally got some of that moving. That money has already begun going from the federal government down to the state government, where it will continue to trickle down to whether if it's a state project, it'll stop there and be appropriated there, or whether it moves to the county, and so on and so forth. The other part of our job in that traditional funding and appropriations process is to make sure that if the community really wants those funds going to a particular project, we make sure everybody is aware that we also want that. So anytime there's a request from any of our state or local partners to get support or make a request, we're there to back them up. The The other part that is, it was there, then it was gone, now it's back again, is direct appropriations. And it's kind of the earmarks of old that went away about a dozen years ago due to some shenanigans. They went away for a good reason, but they also were sorely missed for when they were used appropriately. And so Congress has brought those back. So that comes by way of community project funding. And the community project funding is a very limited form of earmarks, and the only eligible recipients tend to be governments, quasi-government organizations like special districts, or in some cases, nonprofit organizations. They can no longer go to direct to a company for a particular project, because you can easily see how that can go awry. But through that community project funding piece, in fiscal year 23, we saw the city of Pleasanton receive $2 million. We were able to get $2 million for PFAS elimination in the city of Pleasanton. For fiscal year 24, I will say this with a caveat. What is causing kind of the big hubbub in Washington these days is getting appropriations approved. And so I will say that the PFAS request that we have for zone 7 I think it's 12 tanks out in Livermore. We have $3.5 million pending the appropriations process right now. So we're hoping that comes through. We know PFAS is a big concern. Our state and local partners are doing what they can to address it. We're trying to play our part in that process as well. And then even ancillary projects out in Union City, one of our project funding requests for fiscal year 23 was a solar installation to power their treatment plant. So things like that is how kind of we go about addressing some of these concerns. Water has been a big one. The other appropriations request that we have pending right now is for a sewer expansion project out in Livermore, so that we can start getting agricultural tourism headed our way. It's hard to do that when you can't offer your guests a full bathroom. So we know that has been a long-standing Tri-Valley priority to try to get that project moving. Once again, we're trying to do our part using this kind of new again funding process. And they are smaller chunks at a time, but what we have found is if we can show federal support for our project, other players come in and play that role. It's something I know we'll get to Valley Link. That's a role we tried to play. We've done it somewhat successfully. So I will leave that there for now, just as a few examples of what we got going on.
Well, thank you for that, and I'm glad that you brought up PFAS, because my second card question, I'm very organized with my bingo board here, really is related to water. So I do want to spend a little bit of time focusing on water. And I know Assembly Member, you talked about storage. So would love to know at the federal level how we're looking. Well, at the federal level, how are we planning to protect the quality of water so that when it gets to the state, we have the opportunity to store it in a secure way and ultimately get to people. So thinking about the whole water stream, and certainly invite Assembly Member to comment on storage, or if we want to backtrack and talk about quality.
No, absolutely. California is always on the forefront. It's something that you commented on in your opening remarks, on the cybersecurity piece specifically, trying to advance the ball and move things forward. So there are always times where there's push and pull on the regulation front. Keeping up with California is always a good place to be. So that's what we continue to try to do, as well as when there are issues, when our state and local partners find issues. The main role that we play is to get money headed toward the issue. And so that's what we've been working on. I cannot sit next to Assemblymember Bauer Cahan and claim expertise by comparison. So I will hand it to you.
I mean, it's interesting, I think, to the point. So we are you know, the way federalism works is we can be stricter than that, but not less strict, right? So, and California has in the water quality space done that. And they are, although it's a little bit of a push and pull, the mayor and I have been talking about this because, you know, as, for example, Pleasanton starts to clean up their water, they just want to know what the standard is, right? And they're willing to work to that standard, but if we keep moving the ball, be it us or the feds, that makes it real hard for her to get a project that it will be years in the making done, right? If the ball keeps moving and she's trying to plan that project. And so there is some complication because we have generally, I think, been a lot stricter in our water quality standards, and it looked like maybe the EPA was gonna go past where we were, and it was like, we can't do anything about that. You know, again, they could be stricter than we can, but not the other way, where we can be stricter than them, but we can't loosen things from where they are. So, you know, there is sort of the symbiosis of how do we make sure we're doing what's right and set certainty so that people can meet those standards, and that's really important. But we continue to look at, you know, what are our water quality issues? PFAS is a huge one. Microplastics is another that I'm very focused on. We introduced a bill last year focused on microplastics. The EU is really leading in the space, and we wanted California to follow. You know, some of the pesticides that we're seeing appear in our local water, not just in agricultural communities, but in the suburbs that are also neurotoxins. Like all of these things need to be top of mind for us. And so, you know, part of what we do is help folks fund cleanup. But to your point, the best thing to do is avoid this stuff in the water in the first place, right? So that is a lot of the work we're trying to do. And I think we are making strides. It's hard. There are a lot of interests that push against these things, but you know, we were able to get the neonicotinoid bill I've been working on for 2 years signed last week that will really focus on that pesticide, which is a neurotoxin present in suburban environments. Actually, we've done bizarrely a great job of regulating that in agricultural spaces and not touched our usage in the suburbs, and we don't need it. And so part of what we're trying to do is address that out here. So things like that really focus on what's getting in the water. And then to your point, and what Mallory was talking about, then ensuring that what water is contaminated gets cleaned up. And your infrastructure question is a really good one, because I think that one thing that Mallory touched on really well is the funds. We obviously, they're the biggest piggy bank, we're next. And that's really important to our local entities that need our support. And it is true. If they pitch in, the state's more likely to pitch in. If we pitch in, you can get grant money better, right? So it all sort of is interconnected. And so we are trying to do that. But the other thing that's really important, and we've been focused on in Sacramento, in the same way that you see it in your local businesses, is how do we ease up the ability to build the infrastructure? So you get the money, then you have to actually do the project, right? And there are a lot of things standing in your way. And, you know, we've been doing them piecemeal. I did a bill my first year focused on transportation projects, being able to be design build. That wasn't possible before. And for anybody who's done a design build project, it's cheaper, faster, and easier. And so we were able to extend that statewide. All transportation projects can now be built that way. But in June, in partnership with the governor, we really looked at writ large, you know, what are the things, the really red tape regulatory things that are getting in the way of infrastructure. And we moved a package of bills, most of which nobody knows what was in them because it was really very technical stuff at the state level that we thought was holding up our big infrastructure projects, and trying to remove that red tape and make it easier and faster, some CEQA streamlining for those big projects and things like that. Because that is another piece of what we do, right? Is how do we change policy to make these things more accessible?
So I'm gonna actually then pick up on that question, because it's something, Sean, that you talked about making processes easier for folks. I think we can all agree. That would be nirvana, right? I think for us. So what are some of those ways that the state can help to make it easier for businesses to thrive? It's a broad question.
And it's a great question. And I'm going to sort of put that back on all of you, right? I mean, I do think we run, and this is why the relationship with the chambers are so critically important. I don't run a business every day, I'll bet y'all. You do, right? So you see those things, and my job is to then fix them, right? But I don't, you know, and so we really are here to listen and to try to address the things that are getting in the way of our businesses being successful here in California. And as we're moving legislation, right? So even if it's not something that today is in your way, but now you see a piece of legislation, and I think the mayor really hit home how the cities do that, but the chambers do that too. And it's really important. A bill that's pending that, again, may be in line with your values and you like what we're trying to do, but oh, this piece of it's going to be really hard for us to comply with, right? And often we can achieve the goal we're trying to achieve and make it work for businesses if we're in relationship, if we're listening. And so I think that's really critical and something we've been trying to do. You know, we don't always win those fights. Sacramento is heavily Democratic, but we are a very divided Democratic caucus. There is a more progressive wing. I am part of the more moderate wing of the Democratic caucus, the business friendly wing, if you will. And we do get into fights about this, things. We just had a bill signed into law that I supported in concept and fought really hard to make more workable. Because I thought that what they were trying to do was right, but I thought that the way it was being achieved was going to be really, really challenging. And I truly, truly believe, and I say this all the time in Sacramento, that we can do both. We can achieve our goals, we can represent the values of California, and we can make these things doable. And I'm a former regulatory lawyer, so I guess that's just me.
No bias there, yeah. Well, thinking of just the business community, I'm gonna jump around a little bit. Mayor Brown, I know in your strategic plan, there's a huge focus on attracting and retaining businesses within the community. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can best achieve that and certainly what that might look like with you.
Right, so I wanted to do infrastructure.
Uh,
No, she didn't ask me, so. We got 18 million in grant funds for infrastructure, so I just want to hit on that, but okay, no problem. Yes, we can always come back to that. So we have two important policy documents the city's created and recently approved. One is our 5-year, updated 5-year economic development strategic plan. And that's exactly what I think you're referring to. But we also have One Pleasanton. It's a 5-year look for the city of Pleasanton. Where are we now and where do we want to be? But if we go back to the economic development plan, it's got 5 bullets, 5 is a common number here. 5 bullets, economic development, organization, capacity, building, business retention, which will speak really close to all of you who are current businesses. How can we help you stay, but how can we help you thrive and be successful? Local revenue growth, the city needs money to run its city. Can we get more money from sales tax revenue than we would from houses, for example, or vice versa? Let's look at how we can support our city, our parks, and our community. Entrepreneurship and innovative outreach, this just falls into ITV and all the great programs that we have now. And then major projects accelerator. Got a big project coming forward. We have a big project coming forward. Our development industries do. How can we be that concierge service that holds their hand, checks in with them on a regular basis, and then make sure that we're there when we ribbon cut alongside the Chamber of Commerce. So how can we make sure that those go to fruition in a timely manner? Because I know when I was first elected, there was lots of talk about it takes so long to the project through the city of Pleasanton, and we started a policy where we keep track. And there's a lot of times, most of the time, it's not the city that slows things down. Cook seafood, when is cooked seafood coming? It's not on our plate, let's just say that. It's a kind of a well-known joke in Pleasanton. It's still there, it still has a sign out front, but there's no project going on. Montreux, which is downtown, they've already rented the building, and I keep asking my staff, when are they coming? I'm so excited to have this restaurant come. So big projects do require more hand holding. They've earned it. 10X Genomics is a great one. When it was first coming forward, before they even purchased the property, they had an ability to purchase it. They had a legal right to do so. And they checked in with me and the city manager and the director of community development planning. And the 3 of us made a commitment that we're going to make sure their project continued to move forward and that they wouldn't be delayed so long that it was not economically feasible for them. What we didn't know is we should have had PG&E at the table because the slowdown was actually PG&E. But nevertheless, they got it. We ribbon cut it. It was a wonderful business here within our community, but it was a big project. We're very proud. It's a large employer. And so we take them from beginning to end. And I'm always here to start with that discussion. So anybody wants to sit down, say, here's what I'm thinking. I'm looking at a couple different communities. What can you help me with to make sure my project's going to be successful? And absolutely, we're here for that.
We're gonna put you in charge of PG&E.
And does that mean Akielvo's service translate to the small businesses as well?
Absolutely. So that's part of that tracking. Did the project come to beginning to end? And was it behind, and who has some responsibility? So to make sure that small and large, absolutely, thank you for your comment on that. But some of the bigger ones are more complex. That's what it is. But yeah, absolutely. Small, medium, large, right here.
Great, and so, thank you for that answer. I'm gonna go back to infrastructure.
Mhm.
Because I think one of the comments, that I think you shared with us, just even prior to the session, was this intersection between infrastructure and our business community, and the ability to, use infrastructure as a way to attract and retain businesses. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the city is doing?
Sure, on many plates and levels, as a commissioner alongside Halbert and Miley supervisors, we sit on the Alameda County Transportation Commission. We talk about traffic, down 680 perhaps. We're getting ready to open an HOV lane, a high occupancy lane down 680. What a difference. There's a gap and we're in the middle of the gap. So it continues in Sierra Mountain. There's a big break until Sonoma. Somehow this never got finished, and it's money usually, right? It's money. So now the funding is there. So not only at I-680 and Highway 84, State Route 84, that's a huge project that Alameda County Transportation is funding and going to completion eventually. And then 680 with that new high occupancy lane will be a game changer. Then we've been applying for grants for transportation, as I've mentioned. We've applied for 45 million. It's one of the ways to get money for your roads and infrastructure. And what we received 18 million. Most of that is, you probably live here, West Las Positas. Yes, West Las Positas is a bumpy road, and it will cost $30 million to fix it. So the citizens in this budget will not, we can't pay for $30 million out of our budget. So we reach out for grants, and this is how things happen. So we're working on that. So also put roads aside, water and water infrastructure. We are looking at a rate increase. We have not charged enough water in our variable water rates to pay for replacement of existing pipe in the ground. Plus, PFAS-free water costs more than water that's out of a well that has a contaminant in it. So we've shut down all 3 of our wells. We've been purchasing all of our water from Zone 7, and we're going to continue to do that. Now Zone 7 has PFAS removal processes in their Stone Ridge well. They're working on their Chain of Lakes well, and they qualified for a $16 million grant that we didn't qualify for. So this partnership, I'm going to come back to that. The partnership we have with Zone 7 is so incredibly valuable. We meet with them on a regular basis. I sit in as a liaison to Zone 7, as James Cooper mentioned earlier. This relationship is how we provide clean, safe water where residents and businesses don't have to be concerned that their water isn't safe. And as the assembly member mentioned, the targets are moving. Parts per trillion, we're talking about a few pieces of rice in an Olympic-sized swimming pool is parts per trillion. So how did it get there? We're not exactly sure, but we know it has to be removed to be considered clean, safe drinking water in the future. The numbers are not mandated yet, but they will. So we're taking the stance that anything for the future is what we're going to adopt now. So we've shut down our 3 city wells. We're providing all of our water through Zone 7. They've been terrific partners. Thank you. And I see some board members from Zone 7 on the attendees list. So big thank you. The city, our 3 wells, we're looking on October 17th, we're going to vote to potentially, if the council agrees, build 2 wells outside the PFAS plume. Zone 7 and the city will continue to support cleaning up the plume underground, 250,000 acre-feet under your feet of water storage. But we're going to continue to look for water sources that are PFAS free out of the plume. And Zone 7 has helped map underground where this contaminant is. It's incredibly technical. So if we have a good idea where it is, we know where it's not, and where we can have safe, clean water. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna get to 2 other topics. Valley Link, obviously, we started the conversation with Valley Link, and there's a lot of comment from this group that, so again, I should have said this out front. I also have a connection to Maryland. I think I'm the first immigrant. Born and raised in Maryland, not in California. So I come to California from the East Coast thinking this traffic is actually great. So I think it's all about perspective. I lived for 12 years in New York City. Again, just a change in perspective. But I think when I first moved to California, I started to hear a lot about Valley Link and obviously the benefits to bringing folks in from Central Valley or points eastward. So would love to know from this group, big project, what processes do we need to establish to make sure that this is a successful launch? And what are some of the sort of current state challenges to get from where we are today to that successful outcome?
Who wants to take that? Now, I'll say one of the biggest hurdles, I think, for us right now is funding. I mean, it's a $1.86 billion budget that we have to obtain. We've been really good and diligent in obtaining about $1 billion. We're only about 800 million short. That seems like a lot, but that's not a lot when you consider other projects that are up for state and federal funding. So that's the biggest hurdle right now, is just being able to bridge that funding gap. I mean, we still have a tentative date of construction, 25-26. I just spoke to Kevin Sheridan this morning to make sure that number was still accurate. So we want to start construction in late 25, early 26. But again, the faster we can get that funding, and look, our partners at the state and federal level have been fantastic. We wouldn't even be this far if it wasn't for strong partnerships like the supervisor mentioned with our state and federal delegates. Because look, when we started this project, people laughed at us. Bart laughed at us. They said that you were never going to get this done. And you know, Bart, hopefully, he who laughs the best. Because I'd like to give him a big chuckle in 2026 when we're all out there standing on the platform looking at what we've accomplished. Because again, like everyone said, great project, game changer. It's you know, I can't say enough about it. And when we first started, I was lukewarm about ever getting to the point that we're at now. And my boss, he was 100% Haggerty was like, we're getting this done. Like this, I don't care what you're working on. Valley Link is, you're gonna breathe, eat, and sleep Valley Link from here on out. And that's what our office did. And you know, it's great to see that we're there where we're at now. And if we can just get that much further with funding, it'll be a phenomenal project.
And I'll say on the state, so a lot of our funds at the state level do not move through sort of our similar process where we move local funds. Transportation funds are pretty much exempt from that. So I've been able to get planning funds for Valley, but you cannot get project funds. And that's in part because we have so much moving through our SB1 dollars and then through TIRSIP funds and other grant funding. And so it is almost impossible to move direct money into a transportation project. And so that all moves through our intercity rail project funding and things like that, that all goes through MTC, which is why I mentioned MTC earlier. So MTC has this grand plan for the Bay Area, and until very recently, Valley Link wasn't even on the plan. And it now is in their priority list, and that was a huge win for us because so much of the state dollars move through MTC that we have to be on their priority list because we can't get there without those dollars. The feds are great partners. They're going to send money. They already have, they will. But we have to have money coming at every level, and those grant dollars that go through MTC have to be in there. And so to get into their priority list was really key and was a huge push from the local community. But I say that because that, I think, is one of the keys, is continuing to push MTC to prioritize this project. MTC generally, in my 5 years of experience, has been very focused on the urban core. And they do not pay as much attention to us out here, guys. And what we have been able successfully, at least in the Bay Area Legislative Caucus, to do is to help our more urban core members understand the value of the workforce that is taking this train. Their economies will not function unless we get those people to come out. Teachers, they're taking jobs back home because why do they want to commute this far? We can't hire teachers in these areas, right? So we need them to help us build this infrastructure because it benefits their communities too. And so the continued push to MTC, I think, is critical.
gonna ask Valerie, who is sort of teed us up earlier about why Supervisor Riley was not here attending NPC, so I'd love to hear. your
Yes,
thoughts
we'd
on
love to comment on that. Yes, the Supervisor Miley is at MTC in San Francisco today, and today he's actually requesting $15 million in funding for Valley Link. And I believe that will complete that 40 million, I believe, that was approved in 2022. Sean can probably help me out with FB 125. And this will fully fund the design work, I believe the advanced design work, and then will come the construction funding from the state and all of that. But he's very supportive. He wants to really ensure funding for MTC for Valley Link. And he is going to be doing that, advocating for that. Reducing the greenhouse gas emissions that Valley Link will result in is something he's very in favor of and wants to see this be successful. And this does provide a solution for that jobs and housing balance, which we all talk about. And I think it was mentioned earlier with San Joaquin, the San Joaquin Valley, all the disadvantaged communities there as well. This really benefits them in having a transportation corridor into the Bay Area. So again, he's very supportive and he will continue to advocate as much as possible for funding, which is the big piece of it, right?
Thank you. All right, my last topic that I do want to cover before I get to some of our audience questions is really around housing. It tends to be the conversation that comes up, I think, second to water, which is really around affordability and availability of housing. So I'm curious.
James, you're not plugged in. Yeah. No, computer level.
I feel that way when I'm missing a snack. Yeah, not quite there. With the housing bond of 20, it's going to be on the ballot in 2020. What priorities will this fund help address at that ballot? Measure this pass.
Do you mean the regional housing pressure?
Regional housing bond?
This is going to the ballot. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
There's a discussion about this.
I don't know who wants to take this, but I will say that our office is hosting a regional bond community forum in Pleasanton at the Pleasanton Library on November 9th at 6 p.m. to find out more about this bond. And this is the $10 to $20 billion bond, 9 Bay Area counties, if I'm not mistaken, that would generate a huge sum of funds for housing. So it's not like the housing bond that was passed in 2016 in Alameda County, which was measured A1, which passed by 73% of the vote, which gave $13 million to the city of Pleasanton for housing projects. I think you were able to leverage that and build a number of units. I know Pottinger Phase 2 was one of them. Can't remember the other, Sunflower Hill, I think. The other one. So that's different. So this regional housing bond, my boss hasn't taken a position on it. He has some things that he's still trying to negotiate, but we will be having a forum for those that want to learn more about it because it is a assessment on your property taxes. So similar to the $10 to $12 that was assessed on your $100,000 per assessed value 2016 A1 bond. This is just a larger regional approach to trying to solve affordable housing in the Bay Area. But so my boss has not taken a position on it as of yet.
Send some clarification regarding this because I'm on the Housing Commission and we just had a meeting this morning regarding this bond. Can I get my input?
Well, why don't I say so you can respond to that too, because I am one of the very few legislators who voted against the regional housing. And that is not because I'm against housing, it's because from the get-go, it was clear to me that the way it was drafted, and I got some changes. It was filled on the assembly floor. That changed this slightly, but I don't know enough. And we need to see, which was that there was not a return to source of that dollars. And that has been my biggest concern, was that the way it was originally drafted, the vast majority of the funds would go to our big cities. Now that's not true in the final version, to be clear. A lot of it does go to our big cities, but not all. And my position was, I sit in relationship with cities every day who want to do more and don't have the funds. And so when you say my cities aren't building, part of the reason they're not building is it's really freaking expensive out here, guys. And so if we're paying those taxes, I want to see them come back to my community.
Yeah.
We're willing to pay as long as we see the benefit, right? That is pretty much the principle that my constituents abide by. They want a return on their investment. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. And so I have been really skeptical that those dollars are going to return to communities like this. And so I think that is the question I want us to be asking, is if we vote for this, if we pay for this, what is the benefit in my city? What is the benefit across our region? Is it just going to our biggest cities, or are we all seeing the benefit spread across? Will our teachers have somewhere to live in our backyard? Because we want that too, right? And we want affordable housing in every community, and huge kudos, you mentioned a few, but Dublin too has done incredible projects for veterans. And the like, and we need to continue to build these in our community, and so we need to know those dollars are coming back. So I wanted to say that, because I don't know if you would address it.
So yeah, I mean, they pretty much, all the housing commissioners mentioned that they're looking at the general, housing bond that will generate between 10 billion to 20 billion. And that will be used to create thousands of new housing units and, house hundreds of thousands of people throughout the Bay Area. So they're looking at housing about 38,000 people.
Yes, so I mean, obviously really important, but I think we just need to be asking that question as we look at supporting it, and I urge our supervisors to do the same.
So in just in Alameda County, they're looking at 1.4 billion to 2.8 billion that would come just in Alameda County.
Right, and how much of that is the city of Oakland?
Right.
So the city of Oakland is one of the largest recipients, so that number isn't surprising.
I appreciate, Sean, your comments about the information session that's to be held in November. I think for all of our audiences here today, as well as folks that might perceive this recording or just visit the chamber website, really important information that you passed on, and Mallory, that you passed on with cybersecurity. So we really appreciate what you're doing, not just today to give voice to some of the issues, but to also make sure that there's broader community engagement going forward, and will certainly help to amplify those very
Next, answer the housing question. So as you see, new multi-family complexes come around Pleasanton, you might see from the outside, they look like nice buildings, but what you may not know is 15 to 20% of those units are low income housing. And what I love about, it's called inclusionary zoning. What I love about inclusionary zoning ordinances is that it's invisible to the child who lives in that development. They're not in a low income housing development, they're in a housing development. It's a really important difference. And we just approved, I think it's 340 units over by the Stonebridge Mall. It's going to be in the women's Macy's parking lot, and it's going to be blended inclusionary zoning. And so residents don't know which one are the low income housing units. It's only the person who's making that payment, and they're making the payment based on their income. This is great housing for lower income residents, teachers, for example, and many others that live within our community. But the city of Pleasanton has not taken a stance on that housing bond that's going to come up. Exactly as the assembly member said, we don't know the words yet. How that's spent is going to be important. So if we pay for it and we don't get any benefit from it, it's wonderful that we're helping Oakland because we are part of the county. But we also need to be part of our city. And the city of Pleasanton is not able to receive many grants because we're not a disadvantaged community. So that's wonderful, we're not a disadvantaged community, but it's difficult to say over and over and over again, we're paying for programs that we don't get benefit from. So Cottager Garden is a wonderful program. It was helped through the county and the city and the state all help fund 100% age-restricted housing for low-income seniors. Those are very difficult. It was a partnership with a nonprofit housing development, but they're very difficult to get. And we continue to put from our low-income housing fund, it's like a down payment. They kept wanting more and more and more, but finally we were able to get a wonderful project that everybody in Pleasanton should be very proud of for our low-income seniors. But they're hard, they're expensive, and it costs a lot to live here. It costs a lot for just the land to be able to do that process. And that was land that was donated, and some of it had been owned by the city of Pleasanton. So many steps, very complex, very expensive, but within our hearts, we all know this is something that we need to do. Just how to do it.
I'm gonna ask James, if we have any questions from our viewers.
We do have one who has a desire to express their concerns with water. Judy.
Hi, honored members of our state's legislators and local officials. This is Kai-Fen Wang. You can call me Judy. I'm joining this meeting by invitation as a concerned citizen to express my deep concerns related to the water. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for your outstanding services to the public that enables our community, our economy, and our lives to continue to thrive. My concern revolving the water issue is mainly around the recent changes. For example, number one, we have a substantial hike in the Zone 7 water rate. Number two, we also have a proposed water rate adjustment, the proposal that is going to be put in place, which would put a lot of financial stress on our residents, especially on the single family residents. So I want to say that water crisis is currently really gripping our community. And I want to see, especially from state legislators, how can we explore alternative funding options except just raising the water rates on the residents for this necessary, water supply? It's not a luxury, right? It's a necessity. So has there been any state funding, available to alleviate that's available to the city to alleviate the financial strains on our city? We really would like to see if we can also equitably, allocate the financial burdens among everyone versus just a specific group of the residents. So yeah, that's my concerns related to the water issues. Again, thank you for your time and consideration and hearing me out. I would like to really want to see the state legislators do something about alternative funding as well as to alleviate the financial strains on our city, on our residents. Thank you.
If I could start, because you may not know all the detail.
You definitely know much more than me.
So the city of Pleasanton is looking, and the council has deferred a decision, so we will be hearing it at the future city council meeting. But we're proposing a 30% increase year one, a 20% increase year two. And the reason is we have not fully funded, and we have not even partially funded our infrastructure improvements. So if there's a leak in the ground underwater, it's because we have pipes that we have not maintained. So we are proposing to increase that right now. With the 10 similar cities, we are at rock bottom. Not only rock bottom, even after a 30% increase, we're still at the bottom of the water per unit price list. So we just need to cover our expenses. Residents receive a utility bill every other month. The utility bill has many line items on it, not just water. And so we're talking about the water component as a rate increase. It has sewer, zone 7 fixed, Pleasanton fixed, recycled water variables, many of those line items on your water bill. Water costs more now than it did 5 years ago. Why? Because of contaminants like PFAS that we have to remove and other contaminants. Water is the more we talk about how contaminants get into your aquifer, underground water that we're storing, 250,000 acre feet is a huge amount of water. And if we don't protect that, then your water will cost more and be potentially less safe. So we are working really hard with Zone 7, with the cities of Livermore and Dublin, protect our aquifer. And then if there's a contaminant there, you've got to remove it. It's just the way it is. So I hope that's an introduction on what's going on. We're doing rate increases because they haven't been done. They weren't done during the drought periods because we had a drought surcharge. And as people use less water, wow, wonderful. But we have less money then to repair and replace. So it is a complex formula, but it's because we did not collect enough money in the years past that we're needing to catch up. So that's a little background.
Yeah, and I'll just add, you heard Mallory speak about the 2 million.
Yeah, for fiscal year 23, and so to piggyback on what Carla said, that they are looking for cost sharing measures. They came to our office when they heard about community project funding and requested the money, and we ended up getting it through the process. So, so in fiscal year 23, sorry. In fiscal year 23, the city of Pleasanton received $2 million from us to help start to cover some of those costs so that they didn't have to pass on so much to residents. And there's the other Zone 7 project that is pending in the process this year is an additional $3.5 million. We're working on trying to get some of those covered so that it's not all on residents.
Yeah, so our federal partners are doing it. We were able to get $1 million this year directly to Pleasanton for some of this PFAS cleanup. And that's, you also heard the mayor talk about, we moved a lot of money into, it was a lot of money, but not a lot when you look at how much PFAS remediation costs. Be clear about that. We moved a big chunk of money, got some of, but Pleasanton was not eligible for. And so, you know, part of what we try to do. Heard Mallory speak about this from location. So they will often come to us and ask for letters of community, but we are looking at as a state at how to fund this PFAS remediation because we know it is impossible for communities to do it on their own. So we hear you.
Let's do we have another one in line, but let's move on to what we have here.
I was gonna say, we are actually just at 1:15, 1:17, and so I want to be respectful of the group's time, and with appreciation, I want to thank our panel team members for being here today. I think it's a really valuable conversation. To that point, I do have a couple questions that I have to admit my reading skills with handwriting is not ideal. The last question I'm gonna ask is because it's on here twice is really around the construction that sits between 680 and 84.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned that down.
And, when that is expected to be completed.
Oh, I think it's out about a year, and we just approved an extension, $19 million, $19.9 million as a completion. So as we're getting closer and closer, and the hope is that Highway 84 will take a burden off of the 580, 680 interchange, which is a little bit of a nightmare. And so it's dangerous. And so if people who are coming from these wonderful residents that are outside of our county even, and they're out over in San Joaquin County, and they need to get to jobs down in Silicon Valley, they can go 580, 680, they can cut through our communities, which many of them do, or they can take State Route, thank you for the funding, State Route 84, and basically triangulate and just cut right behind between Livermore and Pleasanton and get straight to 680. That's the goal. It's a great goal. It's important. And then separately along this transportation, I've raised the issue for the 5 cities we were talking about. We're going to start talking with the 2 of you about a billion or more for 580, 680, complete the overpass at 580, 680. We've got some of the branches, but we have not finished it. And it was so expensive that it got sidelined, and it's time to bring it back. But Highway 84, State Route 84 at 680 will be a huge help.
You think 1 more year?
I wish I had the exact number, but I believe it's about a year-ish.
And I'll add on the fiscal part of this, that SB1, which was the gas tax we passed before I got there, so what, 6-7 years ago. One of the parts of that is congested corridors, and it's been really helpful in these types of projects because we are one of the most congested corridors.
Great. Well, thank you all again so much for being here with us, and I appreciate the folks in the room and online. Like I said, there are a couple additional questions which we'll hand off after the session.
And then for all the folks that are here in the room, there was something on your chair that shows contacts, ways to contact. For those of you listening online and those who are going to catch this on the recording, we're going to make sure that that information is put in the recording as well.
And you did an amazing job.
Once again, thank you very much. Thank you to our facilitators, Tracey Lewis Taylor. Thank you to all of our listeners today. Everybody have a great day.
We're up to my house.
Okay.
1996. 1996. And the thunder was very